8:20 on the morning line. Mary and Brian with you on this Tuesday. It's the 21st of September, and area businesses probably have lots of questions. There's lots of confusion about COVID mandates. We've been hearing about this October 8th deadline that is coming up, and joining us now to talk more about it, Ronny Smith. She's partner and senior executive advisor with the Mid-State Group. Good morning, Ronny.
Good morning.
And also Todd Leeson joins us over the phone, and he's an employment law attorney with Gentry Locke Attorneys. Hi, Todd.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Ronny, let's start with you and talk about the confusion over this October 8th date that's been thrown out there as a deadline. What is this mandate?
You know, I was thinking this morning as employers, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Christmas Story. We all feel a little bit like Ralphie, waiting for our Ovaltine decoder pin to come in so we can figure out what in the world is this message. But I can also assure you, too, we will be just as enthused as he was when he figured out what it was, right?
Drink your Ovaltine.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of confusion. We get a lot of questions on the HR side. I know Todd and I were talking, and he's been getting a lot of the questions as well. You know, the same week that Virginia updated its permanent standard, the White House also announced a federal OSHA is developing an emergency rule. So a lot of employers are combining the two, going, oh gosh, do I now have to require vaccine mandates? What are my requirements as far as written policies and things? And so what we thought we would do today, you know, I'm always talking about the power of partnerships and how employers need to develop relationships with outside counsel, whether it's HR consultants, but also to have a close relationship with employment law attorneys should some issues arise now more than ever. And so we thought it would be a good thing for Todd and I both just kind of tag team and from both perspectives, what he sees and what I see, just to show like a unified front. So, you know, Todd, it was interesting. It quietly snuck in on September 8th from the Virginia side, a new updated standard. Let's talk about that a little bit. You know, what are some of the points from your perspective, some of the questions that you're seeing folks are having as far as that goes?
Yeah, and I do think it's really important to separate the federal from the state. And so let's take the state. Just very brief history, as you remember, back in July of 2020, Virginia became the first state to issue an emergency temporary standard, and businesses were scrambling to put in place infectious disease plans and risk levels and return to work, and then Virginia followed up in January of 2021, so 7-8 months ago, and they updated that standard. And at that point it became known as the final standard. But they really hadn't said anything about vaccines. They hadn't really kept up with the science, and so as the outlook improved before the Delta variant, to change things, the business climate was improving, and the standard came up for another review, and it was not publicized very well. But it took effect September 8th. And so Virginia now has a final permanent standard in place with COVID-19. And it really didn't get a lot of media attention. And we can certainly talk through specifics of that Virginia standard. But the thing that's made it so confusing is, and there was actually a rollback of some of the requirements on employers, but there are some things that employers need to know about that Virginia standard. And then, Ronny and the audience, what made this so confusing is then the next day, the state plan takes effect and really was not publicized, and then the next day President Biden announced that he was tasking OSHA to come up with a mandate for larger employers. So those two have created a lot of confusion with the timing, and especially the fact that Virginia really did not publicize the new standard as well as they should have.
Right.
So what's included in that Virginia's standard?
So in the Virginia standard, like to Todd's point just a moment ago, we had an Emergency Temporary Standard Act that came out at least a year ago. And that had a lot of the baseline things in it. So employers, if they paid attention at that time, you and I talked about 6-7 months ago about that ETS standard and about the permanent standard and the written COVID policies that talked about workplace safety practices, screening requirements, reporting requirements, return to work requirements, those types of things. All employers should have that already because, to Todd's point, we were already obligated to have those things. There are some minor revisions. There are some confusions on that. Todd, why don't you tell us a little bit about what some of those revisions would be?
Sure. Well, here's I think the most important one that is catching a lot of folks don't know about, and I'm getting lots of questions about this. For employees who work indoors, even if they're fully vaccinated, they need to wear face coverings unless they are alone in a room or eating or drinking, as long as they have at least 6 feet, or they're at least 6 feet from any other person. That sounds like something we had, in fact, 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's in place is because, according to the CDC, we're still in a high transmission. The whole country's in a high transmission area. Mm-hmm. So I've had a lot of employers who have called me about that, and they've reached out to the state, and they have not gotten clear responses. But that standard is in effect. The standard does make some distinctions between employees who are vaccinated versus unvaccinated, but for this one, it requires even fully vaccinated folks are supposed to be wearing masks in the office in a work setting, unless they're alone in the office or eating and drinking. There are a couple of other exceptions, but that's one really important thing to know about this new standard, and that's new.
For all size companies?
Pardon me?
For all size companies?
All size companies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, it also, there's some minor tweaks in regards to updating their reporting policies. I guess that we need to add an anonymous reporting option as well. So people need to pull the policies that they were working with and update a few of these things to be in compliance.
And then...
The good...
Go ahead, Todd.
I was going to add really quickly that a helpful change is they did away with the risk levels of very high, medium, and low risk. And so, for example, you no longer have to have an infectious disease plan, even if you've got medium risk employees. Now, the one exception to that is they have a new definition of something called a higher risk workplace. And that's a workplace where employees are going to have to work close together. For example, they give manufacturing as something that may fall in that. They talk about high volume retail or grocery. In those circumstances, the term is now a higher risk workplace. And in that, here's where the October 8th date comes in. If an employer is in a risk workplace, they do have to update their infectious disease plans by October 8th.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's 8:29 on the morning line. We're going to talk to Ronny and Todd for one more segment regarding these state mandates, and then work those federal mandates in as well, as we continue talking about COVID requirements and upcoming deadlines with Ronny Smith, the Mid-State Group, and Todd Leeson, employment law attorney with Gentry Locke Attorneys. And also coming up next half hour, Lynchburg school parent Jane Sorensen. We'll be right back. (8:36) on the morning line on this Tuesday, the 21st of September. Isn't that a fun story, Ronny?
It's an incredible story.
It's a great story about Lynchburg and just the friendliness of people here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We're continuing our conversation with Ronny Smith with the Midstate Group and Todd Leeson, who is an employment law attorney with Gentry Locke Attorneys. And at the bottom of the hour there, we were talking about the state COVID mandates that just were finalized on September 8th, but they haven't gotten a lot of attention, Ronny.
Absolutely. Todd, I just wanted to circle back on one thing before we kind of move over to some of the questions that we have in regards to the Biden's announcement, the federal level. When it comes to the exposure levels, obviously we both mentioned that they've done away with the high, medium, low, and the infectious disease plans for many of those employers. Let's talk about the training requirements, because I do get a lot of questions in regards to that. I get a lot of questions in regards to, if I've already trained some of my employees last year on the ETS, do I have to retrain them as well again? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. And the training has been updated a little bit with the new standard. If you're in one of these new higher risk workplaces, you do have a training component. You have until November 7 to get that done. For folks in the lower risk, I'm not sure that you need to do anything new. It's just general education of your employees about things like the risks of COVID and letting the employer know if you're experiencing symptoms. That the other comment I would have, Ronny, on the state, and I would advise anyone listening here. The standard is 52 pages. It's found on the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry website. But if Ronny and her group can help you navigate that, that's part of what she does. She's talking to clients all the time. And from the legal end, I can certainly help as well. There's a lot to unpack in that. But so training and return to work and quarantine and when do I have to call the state and report a positive case? All that is part of the Virginia standard.
And it's all found, because we had listeners wanting to know where they can find these mandates, and it's at the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry website.
Yeah, DOLI. The acronym is DOLI, DOLI, and that's where you can find the information.
And these are mandates that the Midstate Group can help with the training, right? Take care of that.
We can help with the training. We can help with a baseline, the actual COVID policy that is mandated to help write those types of things. We're able to do all of those, yes.
Now let's talk about the federal mandates. These are the ones that the president announced that OSHA was going to be developing, and this has to do with the vaccines and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want me to go ahead and start with that, Ronny?
I do. Go for it, Todd.
Yeah, so some confusion on that as well. It was announced on September 9th as part of a larger initiative and plan with several components to it. But one of those, President Biden tasked his agency, OSHA, to write a new emergency temporary standard that would require the vaccine for employers of 100 or more employees, or that unvaccinated would be subject to weekly testing. So OSHA is now scrambling to write the regulations. President Biden gave sort of some broad contours, and now it's up to the agency to figure out all the questions and the answers. So once those are issued, they're going to take effect. So we don't know whether that's going to be 2 weeks, 10 weeks. My best guess is probably early to mid-October. OSHA knows they're going to get sued over this. There have already been a lawsuit filed preemptively.
Yep.
So there's but this will, I think employers should understand that OSHA is going to issue these guidance, these regulations sometime in the next few weeks. And for employers with 100 or more employees, and it also covers some federal contractors, they're going to be faced with a decision of, do we mandate, do we subject unvaccinated to weekly testing, and there's going to be lots of other questions about who pays for it, and lots of we're all just waiting to see what OSHA comes up with.
Todd, can you talk to me a little bit about, I know it's the 100 employees, but there was some sort of calculation method in regards to, I guess, eliminating if they're vaccinated, that from your 100 employee count?
No, that's not going to be. Yeah, great question. Excuse me. 100 employees in your organization, and vaccinated or not, and there's also that's what we think. And it's also, it's not going to be, well, if I've got one plant here and I've got 50 and I've got another plant here and I've got 55, and are those considered separate? No, we're looking at the entire company. So if you have at least 100 employees, expect to be covered by these regs.
So we'll find out what's in it when we see it, and when that will be, we're guessing, but it could be in a few weeks.
So get out your Ovaltine decoder pad.
Exactly. It is like waiting for your Ovaltine decoder. All right. Todd Leeson is an employment law attorney with Gentry Locke Attorneys, and of course Ronny Smith with the Midstate Group, specializing in human resources. And if it sounds confusing, it's because it is very confusing, but it's something that employers and employees need to be paying attention to. So Ronny, again, just remind people how you can help them, or remind businesses how you can help with the HR needs.
Absolutely. If you need some assistance with deciphering what these regulations mean, please call us at the Midstate Group, midstategroup.com, or you can reach out to Mary and Brian, and they can get you in touch with us as well.
We can do that, and those regulations, as Todd said, are at the Department of Labor and Industry, DOLE, at that website. And you guys have a way that you can provide a video to employers, and they can just play that, and that would qualify them for the training. Is that right?
We do. We
Or
can
cover
make
the
some,
training.
absolutely. We have some custom training programs that can help people with this.
Ronny Smith, thank you so much. And Todd Leeson, thank you so much as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you guys soon. 8:43 on the Morning Line, and we're going to talk to Lynchburg parent Jane Sorensen, who didn't get to speak before the school board a week or so ago, but has some comments to share, and her video on social media has been getting a lot of attention as well. So we'll discuss the state of things with